Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tesla stock today is actually green, up about 0.2%, which is a great thing to see because a lot of this market is not green today. The Russell down a third of 1%, S&P down a tenth of 1%, but really under the surface, like there's some damage today being done. And here in this video, I will discuss why that is. I think it partially has to do with FED Bostic today. It seems like FED Bostic is a little concerned about the labor market and flipping to be a little bit more on the dovish side, which, as we've talked about in previous videos, it rubs Wall Street the wrong way, if you will. Now, beyond that, we'll get into all of your Tesla stock news today. There is quite a bit of that as well. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Check out that link down below in the description of this video if you want to come join the trading community. What we're doing over there is going out finding small cap AI stocks that are the next big winners before Wall Street does. I mean, we have many examples of this in the last 12 months. I've done this for my really entire investing journey. No matter what theme it is, there's always going to be stocks within that theme that Wall Street just doesn't pick up on at first, okay? Whether it's semiconductors or, cannabis or small caps or biopharmas or whatever it is, right? Whatever the theme is in the markets at that time, there's always those kind of opportunities. But right now, it's all about AI, and there's one specific stock that I have $75,000 in that I think is going to explode in the month of August following their earnings report. Obviously, not a financial advisor, not a financial planner. I have a lot of skin in the game in that one, and I could always be wrong. So don't be a jackass. Come to your own conclusions, and on to today's episode. So as always, we will start here with your Tesla stock news, but I think what's really moving the broader markets from a sentiment perspective is the broader headline. So I think that's important to also hear out. Now, the U.S. Air Force wants to buy two Cybertrucks to use as targets for precision munitions testing and training. The Air Force says Tesla Cybertrucks have been found not to receive the normal extent of damage expected upon major impact. Testing needs to mirror real-world situations. The intent of the training is to prep the units for operations by simulating scenarios as closely as possible to the real-world situation. So basically, they just said Cybertrucks are strong as hell. If somebody's driving in a Cybertruck and we want to take them out, we want to know how to do that. So that's why they're buying two Tesla Cybertrucks. It's kind of a compliment to the Cybertruck. And this, I think, is huge news today. Tesla spotted doing Robotaxi validation testing in Georgetown, Texas, about 30 miles north of Austin, about a 35-mile drive. So, yeah, another major expansion coming soon, potentially. Now, this, I think, is actually pretty cool. Skilled AI, which is developing a foundational AI model for robots, has released a new video of their humanoid robot walking over objects and exploring environments it had never seen before. The robot is using vision and adapts in real life. From raw images and joint feedback, the model directly outputs low-level motor commands. The single neural network enables humanoid robots to seamlessly walk across flat ground, climb stairs, and step over obstacles without any planning, mapping, or manual switching between behaviors. For all of our testing in this video, we deploy the robot in each new environment without any prior planning or mapping. We took off the humanoid's shoes so you can hear it. And it's pretty cool. This thing was, obviously walking upstairs, getting pushed downstairs. This was cool. It took a package down and up some stairs. Obviously, nowhere close to the extent of, what Tesla's, robot is capable of. And honestly, I just love to see the progress in humanoids, right? Because when I talk to people in real life about Tesla and about the future, I always say this. If you can predict the future, you're going to make a lot of money. And it's very clear to me the future is humanoid robots. Why? It really has nothing to do with the tech itself. It really has nothing to do with the robot itself. It has to do with birth rates. So birth rates globally are pretty much collapsing. I explain it like this, but 20, 30 years from now, it's going to be very difficult, much more difficult, much more difficult to find people to work at McDonald's or find people to work at, jobs that people don't want to do, right? Because there's not going to be as many people, right? The birth rates are down dramatically. Okay, so different countries are going to have this population crisis, kind of like what Japan is experiencing today, where Japan has way too many older people and not enough people for the workforce. Hence, one reason why Japan is so technologically advanced. They really did not have a choice in the matter. Well, Tesla's going to be successful here, okay, in humanoid robots. Other companies potentially could be as well. It's kind of like a car company, though. Tesla's going to be successful, not because they're going to have the best robot first. Like, I don't care if, this company has massive improvements to their robot and they get one that's better than Tesla. Or if, any of the other robotics companies get a better robot, right? It's kind of like a car. Those other companies, they're not going to have the manufacturing capability to build these at scale, and actually reach profitability, like car companies, right? That's why Tesla's so unique. They were actually able to build a car profitably at scale. So it's kind of like Robotaxi. You want to see everyone do well at this stage, because one company does well, odds are the others are going to do well. Now, Toyota has cut its full-year operating profit forecast by 16% and expects a $9.5 billion hit from Trump's U.S. tariffs on imported cars. And Ford now says that Trump's tariffs will cost the company up to $3 billion this year, a $500 million increase from their previous estimate just a week ago. The NHTSA reached out to Tesla on July 1st, wanting to test the company's Robotaxi service in Austin. According to a new filing, the NHTSA didn't specify whether staff did, in fact, ride in Tesla's Robotaxis last month. Tesla has retained its top spot for the second consecutive year as the leading global producer in the battery energy storage system integrator market, with a 15% market share, according to Wood Mackenzie's Global Battery Energy Storage System Integrator ranking. For the North American market specifically, Tesla held the top spot with 39% market share. Ford CEO Jim Farley has promised that a Model T moment is coming. Now, next week, they are going to release this line of affordable EVs assembled in Kentucky with batteries from a new Michigan plant. Ford informed its suppliers that its projections for new EV pickup trucks will be 190,000 units annually. Adam Jonas, in a new note out today, says, quote, "We estimate one humanoid robot at $5 an hour can do the work of two humans at $25 an hour, generating an NPV of $200,000 per humanoid. One robot car can potentially drive down the cost per mile of a rideshare vehicle to less than 20 cents a mile, 1/10 of that of a human-driven rideshare. The marginal cost of your personal C3PO robot should, over time, approach the marginal cost of power. You can't have GPUs without BTUs." And with that, Morgan Stanley reiterated an overweight rating and a $410 price target on Tesla. It says here, Jonas highlights the growing convergence of AI research and manufacturing, calling it a new era of embodied AI. He compares the rise of autonomous vehicles and robots to past tech revolutions like the airplane or the internet, initially uncomfortable but inevitable due to the cost and safety benefits. Again, he shares his expectations that a humanoid robot earning $5 an hour could replace two humans earning $25 an hour. Wild. And net profit value of $200,000 per robot. I mean, if we get to these numbers, That's going to be incredible. Now, in option activity today from hedge funds and institutions, seeing a lot more of these positive large trades coming through. Like here you can see a March 19, 2026 $700 call for $260,000. You can see one right here, a March 19, 2026 $700 call for $305,000. Very unusual, okay? Because like, you know, firms with a lot of money, they can, you know, get a higher quality trade, right? They don't like that's like a retail kind of trade. Short term, you know, expecting the stock to double. That's interesting. Okay. Wall Street, they don't have to move like that. Okay. But when they do, it's like, wow, they are really bullish. You have a June 16th, 2027 $800 call here for almost $500,000 being placed today. So there are these few, you know, trades that are like, wow, that's crazy bullish. So definitely going to continue to watch that. But you have 51 different trades today totaling $43 million with a positive order value of 83%. So hedge funds and institutions are, again, very bullish on Tesla stock today, which we've talked about this before, but it seems like retail has gotten more bearish on Tesla and hedge funds and institutions are getting like bullish on Tesla, which honestly, being a bullish retail investor is a good thing to see because retail, you know, their sentiment changes day by day, like whatever's happening to the stock. And, you know, give Tesla a good day or two and retail is going to be back in this thing. And that's just going to drive the stock even higher. Now, you have about 608,000 shares today that are being covered on, which is kind of the recent trend. It's like every day there's a couple 100,000 shares that are being covered. So not super surprising there. Short interest of free flow at 2.58%. It actually went up a little bit over the past 2 weeks from 2.47% to 2.58%, a nominal increase. $22.41 billion sold short in Tesla, totaling 70.04 million shares that are currently sold short. If we look at stock twits and sentiment, today sentiment is bullish at 60. Yesterday it was neutral at 50. Message volume is low today at 30. Yesterday it was low at 32, and participation ratio is high at 57. So, you know, not terrible numbers, but again, people are not that bullish. Now, here in broader market news today, we're going to start with some of the first headlines that came out this morning at about 8 o'clock in the morning and work our way up through the end of the day. Now, FED Bostic spoke about an hour or two after the markets were, you know, open. And that's what seemed to have caused a lot of the pressure on especially small cap areas, high beta, you know, stocks, high growth stocks. We'll discuss that once we get to it. But first and foremost, Putin on meeting with Trump says the interest was mutual. Putin says that he has nothing against meeting Zelensky. So it looks like, you know, progress is progressing potentially in getting the war in Ukraine to end. This is not something that the markets care about, okay, this entire conflict, but markets do care about what secondary tariffs or sanctions could be put on countries that buy Russian oil, right? Like China, for an example. Trump last night was talking about potentially adding an additional tariff on China for purchasing Russian oil. I don't think that's going to happen. As long as we get some kind of progress on negotiations, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. But getting this conflict ended, getting that, you know, that threat of tariffs on China removed is going to be a positive for markets and for inflation expectations, considering a lot of people think tariffs cause inflation, which they don't. Let's be clear. But from Wall Street's perspective, not having additional tariffs is positive on inflation. Putin says both Russia and the US are interested in a bilateral meeting. Also in the news today, Donald Trump opens up 401ks to crypto and private equity investments. Donald Trump also today posted on Truth Social, the CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There is no other solution to this problem. Thank you for your attention to this problem. The fact that you even have a president talking about a specific company is kind of wild. Again, if you don't think Trump likes the stock market or loves the stock market going up, you're wrong, okay? Trump wants stocks to do well. He wants people to make money. You just, as an overarching thesis for the next 4 years, I don't think you want to bet against that. Call me crazy, but that's not something I want to bet against or assume too much negative things about, right? Do I think Trump will threaten things? Of course. Do I think Trump actually wants to flirt with economic disaster, like more tariffs on China? No. U.S. initial jobless claims came in at 226,000 today. The forecast was 222,000, so it was a little bit higher than expected. The previous week was 218,000. Not a really high number, but starting to go up a little bit. Could be making some people nervous today. Continuing jobless claims came in at 1.974 million. Last week, the estimate was 1.95 million. So it came in higher than the estimate. So again, not exactly great. Not the worst numbers we could have possibly gotten, but not comforting either. U.S. Commerce Secretary Lutnick on China says, I expect the deadline to be extended to allow for trade negotiations. He says he expects the deadline to be extended on China for another 90 days. Lutnick says Trump has spoken to all key tech leaders in the recent days. Trump told tech companies he won't charge tariffs if they build semiconductors in the country. Lutnick says he expects $50 billion a month in tariff revenues. The Swiss government says the Federal Council to continue negotiations with the United States. The Swiss government is not considering countermeasures to U.S. tariffs at the present moment. And Switzerland's aim is at reducing tariffs as swiftly as possible. And the Swiss government says the newly imposed U.S. tariffs place a substantial strain on Switzerland's export-oriented economy. Swiss President Keller Sutter on U.S. tariffs says the goal of the Washington visit was to present a new offer to U.S. officials, which was achieved and was a positive development. And she says it was clear that the U.S. president is sticking to tariffs in the short term. U.S. June wholesale sales came in at positive 0.3%. Consensus was positive 0.1%. FED Bostic today says a ton of economic scenarios that could play out, hard to assign probabilities. Bostic says the outlook is for the economy to continue slowing, but also expect real uncertainty about what that means for jobs and inflation. Bostic says likely to be upward pressure on prices for the next 6 to 12 months. That puts pressure on the Fed. He says that firms are still in a, quote, wait and see pattern around employment. Bostic says the most important question for the Fed is whether tariffs will shift prices once or more persistently. Now, the Trump team likes Fed Waller's desire for rate cuts based on forecast and favors him for the Fed chair. Fed Bostic says policymakers would not respond to a one-time price shift, but there are compelling reasons to be skeptical. And Fed Waller has met with the Trump team, but not with the president. Bostic says, I am skeptical that the tariff impact will be temporary. And the Trump team likes Waller's desire for rate cuts based on forecasts. Fed Bostic says the way tariffs are unfolding could make it hard to pin down the impact and suggests the episode will last much longer than people anticipated. Bostic says evolution of tariff rollout could extend the impact. Bostic says businesses are using a mix of approaches in changing prices, and there is ongoing discussion this could shift expectations. Somebody literally commented on this and says he needs to stop talking. He's killing the market. Fed Bostic says, I feel businesses will continue adjusting to tariffs well into next year. He says the fundamentals of the economy are still quite solid. He says that small businesses are feeling acute strains from tariffs due to narrower supply chains. He says that small businesses also have less ability to absorb import taxes without raising prices. The Swiss president says we had signals from US negotiators that they support the deal and think it's good, but you can't be 100% certain that Trump sees it that way. And I love how open the Swiss president is here. Swiss President Keller Sutter says the balance of power is clear, but we also have some strong cards to play. She basically says, like, yeah, we're screwed, but we're screwed. that's what I got out of that. But hopefully, obviously, we get a deal done with Switzerland. And Bostic says, we're yet to see all the price changes. We'll see. And Bostic says the stress on lower income consumers has been building. Excess savings from the pandemic have been spent. Yeah, that was spent a long time ago. FED Bostic says, I don't know how consumers would respond to another round of price increases. I do. They would not buy those things. They would buy less of those things. Now, these next comments are some of the comments that really, I think, shook the markets today a little bit more. Bostic says the jobs revisions were quite large, showing churn and turbulence in the economy. Bostic says, I have not seen signs of a dramatic slowdown in the labor market in the southeastern states. Bostic says the July jobs report did cause a shift in thinking about how the Fed is doing on its employment mandate. So the Fed's, even some of the most, hawkish Fed members that were not team rate cuts are starting to get a little bit more concerned about the labor market. FED Bostic says the jobs revision number raises a question of whether the U.S. is still at full employment and whether we are more balanced now. Bostic says it's been surprising how the markets have shrugged off the price impact of tariffs. I mean, we haven't seen inflation from tariffs besides in certain areas of goods, which, don't really matter much to the economy. If we put it simply, like, you're not going to the store and just watching everything go up because of tariffs. That will not happen because of capitalism and because of competition. Bostic says, I am expecting volatility to remain heightened. Bostic says that tariffs can't be looked through because they are meant to induce structural change, potentially leading to more persistent impacts. FED Bostic says, I still feel that one cut for this year remains appropriate, but there's a lot of data coming before the September meeting. FED Bostic says the jobs data did indicate risks to the labor market are much higher than seen before the last meeting. Bostic says, I am hopeful that by mid to late next year, price pressures will have eased. Netanyahu says Israel intends to take control of all of Gaza. Bostic says it would not be surprising if dissents continue at the FOMC meetings given the complexity of the moment. He says it's harder now to make policy decisions than it was 12 months ago. Risks to both mandates are changing. Bostic says businesses are moving AI into their business processes, but the implications for employment are not clear. Bostic says the rise of pay later programs shows that consumers are stretched. This is a source of concern for the Fed. And Bostic says the U.S. consumer is a big question mark right now. And you see how this has really evolved where, before the Fed said the consumer's strong and they're just fine, labor markets are strong and blah, blah, blah. Like the same things we've heard for years. And now even Fed officials like FED Bostic are like, we don't know if the consumer's doing well or not. Like it looks like they're slowing, and that is a shift. Okay, that's even a shift from the last time that we heard FED Bostic speak. Okay, and that I think makes Wall Street a little nervous. In fact, stocks tend to do the best when the Fed is on pause, right? When the Fed is not doing anything. Stocks do not tend to do well when the Fed is hiking. At least not in the last cycle. Back in from 05 to 08, when the Fed was raising rates, the markets actually did well because if the Fed is raising rates, intuitively, that means the economy is doing good, right? Or at least it should, right? If the Fed is raising rates or trying to cool down the economy. When the Fed is paused, it means the economy is doing okay. Inflation's not too bad, right? That's historically the best time for stocks, right? When the Fed starts to cut rates, if they're cutting rates because inflation was high and came down, that's fine. But if the Fed is cutting rates because the economy is weakening, that's not as great. And that's what Wall Street's trying to figure out right now is, did the Fed wait too long? Are we going to continue to see economic cooling, right? If we can use some of the Fed's terminology here. And from Wall Street's perspective, it's too soon to know that. So there's a little bit of nervousness and or uncertainty out there. I don't think we are going to go into a period of, recession or, massive slowing. But hey, could be wrong. Anything's possible. And according to the New York Fed, one-year consumer inflation expectations came in at 3.1% in July versus the expected 3%. 3-year ahead expected inflation remained unchanged at 3% in July. Did get a new AI investors sentiment survey that came out today. Not surprising what the results are. 34.9% of investors are bullish, 21.9% are neutral, and 43.2% are bearish. So you had a 10.2% rise in bears from 33% to 43.2%. About a 5% drop in neutral investors and about a 6% drop in bullish investors. Okay, so bullish fell, neutral fell, and bearish rose. That's actually a good sign, right? You want to see people bearish for stocks to continue to move higher. You got to climb that theoretical wall of worry. There's got to be things to conquer and problems to solve, or, markets kind of just end up fizzling out. Now, CNN's Fear and Greed Index today is coming in neutral at 55. Even yesterday, you were, I believe, in greed, but 1 week ago, you were at 59 in greed, and 1 month ago, you were in extreme greed. So you've definitely seen sentiment dial back a bit. Market momentum is neutral. Stock price strength is greed. Stock price breadth is greed. Put and call options, fear. Market volatility is neutral. Safe haven demand is neutral. And junk bond demand currently in. And you can see here on the day today, the VIX is up 2.44%. Russell 2000 is really one of the underperforming indexes, down 0.64%. NASDAQ slightly in the green, up 0.15%. S&P is down 0.26%, and the Dow is down 0.76%. Keep in mind, August is seasonally a weak period for markets. August, September, weak periods. October, things get a little bit better in the second half of the month, and then November and December are seasonally strong. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be bullish on the last, call it 2.5 months of this year. And I think, we're in for quite a rally in that period. But between now and then, could you get some chop? Yeah, I'm not expecting any kind of large drawdown here. But could you get some chop back and forth, some volatility? Of course. 10-year Treasury yields are up about 1.5 basis points today, and oil is down about 0.2%. Besides the comments from Bostic, it's not actually a whole lot going on today. We do have some earnings in after hours as well that I should mention because they could be important. The Trade Desk, Rocket Lab, SoundHound, NewScale, Block, Pinterest, Atlassian, Take-Two Interactive, and Twilio will report today in after hours. Friday, you'll get Fubo, Tempest AI, TerraWolf, and Wendy's tomorrow morning that will also report earnings. So let me know your thoughts on all of this down below in the comment section. Honestly, I'm taking this as an opportunity to buy if we do get any, larger drawdown here. But keep in mind, there's still a lot of earnings to go in the coming weeks, especially in some of the smaller companies that you and I likely invest in. Like in the trading community, we've only had a couple of our stocks actually report earnings so far. And I'm expecting to get some big moves throughout the rest of August. Check it out, link down below in the description of this video. If you would like to come join that, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel on your way out of this video. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.